It's Hoa. I'm back again. I have something really important to talk about. It's a subject we rarely discuss because it can make us feel uncomfortable. Sexual harassment at the workplace. Some of you already know what that means. You may have even experienced it. You might be wondering, how do I know about this subject? Well, it's happened to me. At first, I avoided the issue and didn't know who to ask for help. I felt ashamed, but there's nothing to be ashamed about, and it's up to all of us to prevent it. So, what is sexual harassment at the workplace? How can we recognise it, and how does it affect our lives? Sexual harassment includes both physical contact and verbal and non-verbal acts. It can be as simple as an inappropriate suggestion, comment, gesture, or even a text message that's sexual in tone, or as serious as a sexual assault. Some of us don't know we are being victimized and feel powerless to stop it. A Vietnamese proverb says, being a flower is to be picked up, being a woman is to be cheated on by men. When this could lead to bad behavior by men, women can find themselves victim of sexual harassment, and that's not funny at all. It is also unacceptable behavior which is prohibited by law. It means factories have to take measures to prevent harassment, which they usually do through a written policy. Companies that buy our clothes often have rules against harassment too, designed to ensure factories protect workers. But many victims of sexual harassment don't know who to turn to if they have been abused. Often they remain silent or feel too afraid to report an incident. I also felt ashamed and worried I'd lose my job if I reported a problem. The problems didn't go away, and soon I was so depressed I didn't want to go to work. But eventually I decided I didn't want to suffer in silence or let others face the same experience. I first confronted the person harassing me and let him know what he was doing was upsetting me. When it didn't stop, I took notes on what happened, where and when. Then I spoke to my supervisor, whom I trust, and she knew exactly what to do. She went to speak to the human resource manager. Then things really began to change for the better. So, if you ever experience sexual harassment in the workplace, don't suffer in silence, and make sure you speak to someone who can solve the problem. They will listen and they know how to help you. Do it for yourself and your colleagues.
Awkward silences, dorky dancing, cringy flirting and bad kisses. All this just to attract a mate. Courtship behaviour is a pattern or sequence of actions that an individual performs in order to attract a mate. The behaviour can involve a number of signals, for example, auditory or visual stimuli, or displays of beauty or fighting prowess, or it can even be very simple. Courtship behaviour usually leads to mating and reproduction. Mating rituals are usually performed by males to show off to the female, hoping his courtship behaviour will be enough for her to choose him to mate with. The rituals displayed can convey reproductive fitness, or they can just trick reluctant mates into copulation. For example, deer who have large antlers may attract a female because it suggests they fight off other males. Antlers are thought to be a true reflection for food gathering capability and metabolic efficiency, thus large antlers are a good sign of reproductive fitness. This is a form of sexual selection, and it is subject to natural selection. The behaviour may also deter competing males and stops different species interbreeding. Courtship display or mating rituals are set behaviours that animals perform as part of courtship. Birds of paradise have a courtship display which involves performing dances and acrobatics to attract a partner. Displays can involve several males displaying together in an arena. They call out and display their feathers. The birds also display on branches, often hanging upside down to impress a female. The elaborate courtship can help to strengthen a bond between a couple, which can increase the chances of the bond remaining throughout the rearing of young, or even longer.
We explain HIV and AIDS. The human immune system defends the body against illnesses all the time. It uses guards in the blood called T cells to recognize any intruders and destroy them. But instead of attacking the body, the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, attacks those T cells themselves. It turns them into copy machines to make more copies of itself, then eventually kills the infected T cells. Without treatment, it takes 8 years on average for a person with HIV to develop AIDS, or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. By then, there aren't enough T cells to fight off various infections and diseases. So it's not the virus directly, but the diseases that are eventually fatal. Humans first acquired HIV from blood contact with apes, and gradually transmitted it to more people through unprotected sex, used syringes, and childbirth. AIDS remained undiscovered until a sudden outbreak among gay men in New York and San Francisco in 1981. Very quickly, people began developing the same unusual symptoms around the world. The patients suffered from rare forms of skin cancer, pneumonia, or thrush, and few survived. Prejudice against homosexuality made research funding hard to get, and more people were getting sick. What could be done? Keep the virus from spreading. It became clear that the best preventive measure was safe sex, as condoms kept the virus from infecting others. Additionally, blood banks started testing blood, and new programs even distributed clean needles to drug users. Finally, in 1987, the first treatment against the virus was released, the ancestor of combination therapy. The medication still isn't a cure, but it keeps the virus from multiplying and destroying the host's immune system. By starting treatment early, people with HIV can now live long, healthy lives. Unfortunately, many people still lack access to medication, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Over the last 30 years, about 36 million people have died, while 2 million more are infected each year. Scientists have made a lot of progress, but are still looking for the cure. You too can help end the AIDS crisis. Play safe, get tested, donate to support research, prevention, and care, and spread the word.
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and though we may share a planet and many other similarities, our bodies function in some majorly different ways. In this video, we'll take a look at some of those differences unique to women. Women between the ages of 12 and 50 years old undergo a monthly cycle in which their uterus prepares for pregnancy. It prepares for a fertilized egg to settle and grow into a baby. If pregnancy does not occur, the lining breaks down and is expelled from the uterus. This is known as menstruation. The menstrual cycle usually lasts about 28 days. During this period, women undergo drastic hormonal fluctuations as well as physical discomforts such as abdominal cramps, headaches, backaches, and general nausea. This has led to it being colloquially referred to as the curse. The first stage of the cycle is menstruation and occurs if the egg has not been fertilized. This lasts between 3 to 7 days and is more commonly known as a period. Because the egg has not been fertilized, the uterus lining, called the endometrium, is not needed, and hence it breaks down and is lost through the vaginal canal with some blood. The next stage is known as ovulation, and is when the woman is most fertile. After menstruation, the lining of the uterus thickens up again in preparation for a fertilized egg, and inside the ovary, a follicle develops. At about 14 days into the cycle, an egg is released from the follicle in the ovaries, and fertilization could take place. If the egg is fertilized and embeds itself in the thick uterine lining, the lining is not shed, and thus menstruation does not occur, and the woman becomes pregnant. If it doesn't manage to embed, then the lining will break down and menstruation will occur and the cycle is repeated. The menstrual cycle is controlled by two main hormones, estrogen and progesterone. We met these hormones in this video. Estrogen is produced by the ovaries and causes the uterus lining, the endometrium, to thicken again after menstruation so that it is ready to receive an embryo. Progesterone is produced by the empty follicle in the ovary. See how it is produced after the egg has been released and then drops off if the egg does not embed in the uterus or if the egg is unfertilized. But if the egg is fertilized and embeds, then progesterone levels stay high for the first 6.5 months of pregnancy. The follicle continues to produce it and a placenta is formed. So estrogen builds up the uterus lining and progesterone maintains it during the second half of the menstrual cycle. There are two other hormones also involved: the follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH, and the luteinizing hormone, or LH. Both FSH and LH are secreted by the pituitary gland. FSH causes the egg to mature in the ovary, and it also stimulates the ovaries to release estrogen. The estrogen then stops FSH being produced, so that only one egg matures in the cycle. LH causes the mature egg to be released from the ovary and stimulates the release of progesterone. You may want to browse the internet to learn more about these hormones. So from this video, you should now have a better understanding of how the menstrual cycle works, how the main hormones estrogen and progesterone control it, and how a woman's body is affected by these drastic changes.
Today, we will be talking about testosterone and sexual motivation. Sex. Oh, I'm sorry. Does this make you uncomfortable? It shouldn't. We all exist because of it. So stop and take a moment to think about a past sexual experience. Are you aroused? Was the experience preceded by a strong sexual desire and motivation to engage? Probably. So, what exactly is sexual motivation? What causes it? And as the subject of the video suggests, what is testosterone and its impact on sexual motivation? Sexual motivation revolves around desire to satisfy goals related to sexual behavior. Individuals experience a heightened sense of sexual interest and seek out activities such as masturbation, kissing, touching, oral sex, and intercourse for the sense of pleasure achieved through completion. Many theories have been proposed regarding the causes of sexual motivation. Freud suggested that sexual acts were the result of a sexual drive. He dubbed sexual drive as biological in nature and originating in the testes. His theory suggests that engagement in sexual activities occurs to fulfill needs that accompany a buildup of excitement and psychic energy that we can't escape. Abraham Maslow also proposed that sexual behavior exists because of a sexual drive. He considered sex as an entirely physiological need. He suggested that physiological needs such as sex are the most important, and when fulfilled only then can we worry about and begin to fulfill our other needs of safety, belongingness, self-esteem, and self-actualization. Both Freud and Maslow's theories in some way referred to sex and sexual drive in terms of biological or physiological principles. Now, Freud was right when he insisted sexual drive originates in the testes, as this is the production site of testosterone. Testosterone is a steroid hormone secreted by the testes in the men and ovaries in women. It plays a role in the maintenance of masculine characteristics and the development of secondary sexual characteristics for both males and females. It peaks after puberty in men and declines throughout the lifetime. Females also have testosterone, but their levels are much, much lower than what men have. Satisfactory testosterone levels have been considered necessary for sexual functioning. A deficiency in testosterone is associated with sexual dysfunction such as a reduced libido, erectile dysfunction, decreased volume of ejaculate, and decreased sexual thoughts and desire. Testosterone replacement therapy can be used to combat these effects. Those convicted of sex crimes have been found to have higher levels than those convicted of crimes of property such as theft and drugs. Individuals in long-term relationships tend to have lower levels of testosterone than single men and women, and having or fantasizing about having multiple partners leads to higher testosterone levels than partnered or single individuals. Just remember, we are all sexual beings. It's in our biology. So go, live your life and explore, and see if you can pick up on any cues that might impact yours or others' sexual motivation. After all, you wouldn't be here without it.